They were just teenagers, huddled around a fire in the woods. The wind moved slow through the bare branches above them. A crackling campfire pulsed in the dark, throwing long shadows across the stones at Gitchie Manitou State Preserve. It was November. Cold, but not unbearable. They had guitars, cigarettes, and the kind of easy silence that only comes when everyone feels safe. They weren't far from the road. Not really. But it felt like the middle of nowhere. That was the appeal. 17-year-old Stuart Botta strummed a few quiet chords. His brother Dana, just 14, leaned into the heat of the flames. 19-year-old Roger Essam sat with his arm around his girlfriend, 13-year-old Sandra Chesky, and off to the side, Mike Hadrath, 15, stared up at the stars. The group had slipped into the preserve that night knowing it was technically off-limits. But it was a small rebellion, something harmless, nothing serious. Then they heard the footsteps. 2 men emerged from the shadows, older, broad-shouldered, with guns drawn. They claimed to be narcotics officers, told the teens they were trespassing, maybe even under arrest. The teens froze. The moment turned sharp, tense. But the men's tone was controlled, rehearsed even. They barked orders, herded the group together, and marched them deeper into the woods. There was no badge, no cruiser, no warning. And once the kids were far enough from the road, the third man stepped out. He raised his shotgun and pulled the trigger. Roger dropped first. No warning, no plea. His body hit the dirt, unmoving. Donna turned to run, but caught a second blast in the back. Stuart fell next. Then Mike. 4 shots, 4 teenagers dead in seconds. Only Sandra remained. She hadn't moved, hadn't screamed. She stood frozen in shock as the man lowered his shotgun and the others began whispering, arguing. One of them told her to lie down next to the others and pretend she was dead, and for a few moments, she did. The killers were brothers, Alan, James, and David Fryer, drifters, petty criminals, paranoid and violent. They hadn't stumbled onto the teens by accident. They had watched them for hours, hidden in the trees. When the guitars came out and the campfire lit up, they made a plan. The drugs, the arrest, it was all a lie. They wanted the kids' gear, their cigarettes, maybe the van, or maybe they just wanted to kill. Sandra remained on the ground, barely breathing, as the men talked about what to do with her. Then one of them lifted her up and led her away. She didn't know where they were going, just that they were leaving the others behind. The boy she loved, her friends. Their bodies were still warm. The next 12 hours would be worse than any horror story Sandra had ever imagined. She was dragged through the woods, forced to stay silent, and taken to a farmhouse miles away. There, in the dark of a stranger's home, she was assaulted, interrogated, and told that if she ever spoke a word about what happened, she'd end up just like the others. But Sandra did speak. When she was finally released the next day, dumped at a relative's house, she told everything, every detail, every name she could remember. And by the end of the week, the Fryer brothers were in custody. The crime stunned the region. There was no reason, no motive that made sense. The Fryers confessed and retracted, blamed each other, claimed it was self-defense, then a robbery gone wrong. But none of it held. At trial, Sandra testified. 13 years old, but unwavering. She sat just feet from the men who killed the boy she loved, and she told the courtroom what she had seen, what they had done. 2 of the Fryers were sentenced to life in prison. The third was institutionalized. Gitchie Manitou never fully recovered. The preserve remained, but its stillness changed. Locals still visit. Hikers still pass through. But no one stays long after dark. And if you listen closely on a cold November night, they say you can still hear a guitar echoing from the trees, a few soft chords fading into the wind. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. If you enjoyed this true story, Join us next time, if you dare.